At the age of 16, Mr. Dennius attended night school at the University of Cincinnati for 5 years. He studied physics, electronics, and mathematics. At the same time, he was employed by Crossley Corporation, where he was involved in the production of a radio proximity fuse. Mr. Dennius's career in electronics led him across the country, holding such jobs as commercial engineer at the American Type Founders Corporation and executive engineer at the Philharmonic Radio. From 1946 to 1950, Mr. Dennius was vice president and director of Melpar Incorporated in Alexandria, Virginia. In 1950, he moved to the Melbourne area. It was then that Mr. Dennius and a colleague, George Shaw, co-founded Radiation Incorporated, an advanced research and development company designed for support of the space program. When I asked Mr. Dennius about the problems he had in getting Radiation Incorporated started, this is what he had to say.
It was very difficult, I had to work at it day and night for quite a long time. But everything went well from the first. We never had any great problems, except one. We couldn't borrow any money in this area.
In 1967, Radiation Incorporated merged with the Cleveland-based Harris Intertype. Today we know it as Harris Government Systems. In 1960, Mr. Dennius formed the Dennius Foundation in Melbourne, Florida. Its purpose was to support high technology development in schools of higher learning. Also, in this same year, Mr. Dennius led the founding of the First National Bank of Melbourne and served as chairman of the board. From 1967 to 1969, Mr. Dennius served as vice chairman for Harris Intertype Corporation. He left there to create another success, Electro Science Management Corporation, a venture capital company in which he is currently involved. Mr. Dennius had a lot to say when I asked him about what he thought was his greatest accomplishment.
I was very interested in getting FIT started here because the company needed them for one thing, and also it was a good source of education possibilities for our engineers that wanted to take advanced courses and so forth. I'm a lifetime director of FIT. Over a period of time, I've worked for several companies. I held about every position in a company except president before I came here. And I was 36 years old when we started Radiation. I started to work when I was 18. And back during the Big Depression, the thing that I did, I went from one job to another. I think one of the most important things a person can do working for a company is to give every bit of support they can to the person they're reporting to. And if they can't work for that particular person, they should get themselves transferred or go to a different job. Because the one thing that means the most, I believe, in industry to someone getting ahead is the person that you're working for is the one that is going to push you forward. And if you don't push him forward, he's not going to be able to push you forward. And life goes that way, not only in industry, but in other things. I worked in all branches of electronics. And I was with a company up in Washington. I was vice president of engineering and director of the company. And I wanted them to start a company down here when this base opened. And they didn't want to do it. And I said, well, I'm going to do it then. If you want to put money in the company, you can. And they decided they didn't want to. So I came down here to start another company. And I brought 5 engineers along with me, which was agreed to by them. That's the way we got started down here. George Shaw was vice president.
Every rose is bound to have its thorns, and Mr. Dennius considers the thorns of his profession.
Well, you never know from one minute to the next what's going to happen, but I think you just roll with the world as it goes by and do the best you can.
On the other hand, when asked what he enjoyed most about his life, Mr. Dennius replied,
Well, I enjoyed sailing and hunting, and I guess those two things more than anything else. Fishing, I'll have to add that.
He is a lifetime member of the Board of Trustees, and on February 22, 1969, the Homer Rainey Dennius Student Center was dedicated in his honor. In 1965, Mr. Dennius was awarded an honorary doctorate of space education by FIT for his contributions to the aerospace industry and higher education in space science and engineering. I asked Mr. Dennius what would be included in a Homer Dennius's formula for success, and he responded,
Well, I think it gets down to live according to the golden rule and do good where you can.
When I asked Mr. Dennius what advice he would give me about becoming my generation's Homer Dennius, he replied,
Well, I have several grandchildren, and the advice I give to them, I would say the same thing I would say to you. I tell them that when they go to school, and all of my grandchildren have either graduated or are in college, that the most important thing for them to do is to get the best grades they can possibly get. Because if they want to go to graduate school, it'll help them quite a bit in getting in. And the other thing, it will mean an awful lot to them in everything they do in future life.